Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Q&A. So let's go ahead and knock this out. All right, first question. What are your thoughts on CrossFit? Well, that's a very vague question to a very complicated topic. Look, CrossFit, like everything else, has its problems, and it has its good. Right? It has its good. It has its own culture. And what would I say the good versus the bad is? Because I lean in the direction of considering CrossFit to be more good than bad. And I think that may surprise a lot of people coming from me. I think it does more good than it does harm. So I would place it in the category of being generally good. What are the downsides? Some of the culture promoting excessive training volume with all sorts of accidents, high injury rate, rehabdo, and sometimes even some of the joking part of their culture is that the rehabdo itself is almost seen as a mark of pride, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. And of course, it has its own cult-like culture. Now, the upside, they tend to be very, very conditioned. People who are serious CrossFitters tend to be in much, much, much better shape than the average, say, bodybuilding type enthusiast or bodybuilding bro, right? And by in shape, you guys know what I mean by in shape. Because bodybuilders are usually, as a rule, not in shape compared to other populations who train. So CrossFitters tend to be very in shape. Okay, they tend to have a very, very big focus on general physical preparedness. As far as GPP goes and being generally physically prepared, CrossFit will do that very effectively. Now, I don't like the lack of specificity of training. I don't like the specificity of training problem. But if a person just says, hey, I want to get into great shape, I mean, CrossFit will do it. Again, depending upon the box. Now, people will say, well, what about the individual boxers? What about these ones that do this crazy, stupid stuff? Well, that's based on individual boxes and individual coaches. That's not necessarily the organization as a whole. And I think to be fair, you have to keep that in mind. Like my aunt, who holds some powerlifting records now in America, in her late 60s, she started with CrossFit. And she started at a boxer where they did a lot of form coaching. So they actually made them learn correct snatches and clean and jerks and squats and all of that. She got her squat as a woman in her early 60s, as a woman, past 200 pounds just while doing CrossFit. And the coaches there teaching her how to squat. Okay? So, I mean, if the coaches at that particular box are able to get a 60-something-year-old woman to a 205-pound max raw squat, full squat, they clearly knew something. They got her up to a respectable snatch, clean and jerk. So it really depends on the box, doesn't it? And the other big thing that I will say, it does encourage people to work really, really hard. So I see that as generally a good thing, along with the promotion of barbell work. Okay, it has its perks and it has its negatives. But to be fair, it has done a lot of good. So I would view CrossFit generally as more positive than negative. It's my opinion. Says me. All right, next question. Can you grow calves if you have bad genetics? This is where I usually throw in my personal joke. When something like this comes up of everyone says that I have the worst genetics on YouTube Fitness. People have made hundreds of memes about me and bad genetics. Yet I have bodybuilder calves, right? How many bodybuilders who watch my stuff say, dude, your calves are freaking ridiculous? I have coaches and trainers on my friends list who are like, what in the hell do you do for your calves when they see my clips? I'm like, I don't grow my calves at all. They've always looked like that. So let that sink in for a moment. You know, this is where we joke about calves a lot. Look, I'm going to be honest. Calves are one of those muscles that you either have them or you don't. And I'm not saying you can't make some changes to it, but you will never make the sort of changes you'll make to your arms, for example. Okay? Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I don't have big arms relative to my torso. Probably relative to a lot of guys out there who think they have bigger arms than me. They just don't understand how big my torso and back is. My arms may be bigger than theirs. Like as in, I've met Jeff Seid in person and his arms were not bigger than mine. Perspective. I have added 10 times more size to my arms from training than I have my calves. I bet my calves have grown less than 1 inch in the entire time I've been working out. And you see that a lot. You can, for example, you might be able through the course of training be able to add 2 inches, maybe 3 inches to your calves in a lifetime if you work really hard. You're all going to gain more arm than that. I probably had 10-inch arms when I started training. Like I had literal toothpick arms. Not what you guys think now, like, oh, you got toothpick arms. Bet you my arms are at least 17 inches right now. Bet you they are. It's that I have over a 50-inch chest. So, like 7 inches difference, right, of training. A lot of guys do that. Plenty of guys add 6 inches to their arms in training. Nobody adds 6 inches to their calves. They're very, very genetic. Deal with it. Okay? Deal with it. But the thing that comes down to is that when it comes to these different things, people get this stupid idea like good genetics versus bad genetics instead of realizing everyone has dozens of different genetic traits and you're going to have a list of good and bad stuff for every either physique or athletic endeavor. And something that's a great gene for one thing may make you terrible at another. So that's the thing that people need to remember too. There's a trade-off. Genes are a set of just switches really, guys. There's a compromise on every single gene. All right, so if something physique or sports related, a gene that's going to make you good at one thing could actually hurt you at another. It can make you disadvantaged at another. It's just balance. And people just need to accept and work with what they have and just reach their best potential. Stop sitting around worrying about, can I get great calves with bad genetics? Probably not if you have bad calf genetics. But we use that joke and it's like, well, I have bad genetics and I have massive calves. But I can't grow my calves either. I've never grown my calves. I've had bodybuilder calves when I was an 18-year-old non-lifter. I was just born that way. Always had them. But calves are hard to grow. Look, be realistic. You probably are going to be lucky to add 2 inches to your calves if you bust your ass. And like anything else, you're going to have to come in and hit a lot of full range of motion training. You're going to have to do a lot of volume, and you're going to have to work the hell out of them multiple days a week for years and years on end if you don't have calves. And I would say don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. You're not going to be a competitive bodybuilder. Why do you even care? Add what you can to them and be happy with it. All right, next question and last question of the week. Jason, thoughts on Paul Carter talking negatively about deadlifts? Here are his reasons. Check the pic. Can you address these points? Look, we all know what Paul Carter's points are. I tend to hold a generally favorable view of Paul because of his great powerlifting coaching back in the day when he was a powerlifter. Paul has kind of switched over to focusing entirely on bodybuilding these days, and he seems to almost not like anything that doesn't make people a great bodybuilder. Okay, that's his viewpoint. That's the way I perceive it. So he doesn't like deadlifts anymore. And look, if we're going to talk about purely from a muscle growth perspective, I love the deadlift. I think I'm doing a 615 deadlift in the background there. I think the deadlift is the greatest exercise of all time. I don't use it for hypertrophy. Now, he, of course, gets mad. He's saying, oh, these bodybuilding bros are all jerking off about it and blah, blah, blah. Well, Paul used to have over a 700-pound deadlift himself. So you need to keep that in perspective. But it's like, so what? It's a great test of strength. It's a great test of strength. And there's some dudes who say, hey, I'm into bodybuilding, but I still want to be strong, and they want to test their deadlift every now and then. I think that's a great thing. I'll disagree with him there. I think it's great if they want to test their deadlift. We should be strong. We should test our strength. Everyone who lifts weights and claims to be serious about lifting should be strong. I don't give a crap what your goals are. So I don't see a problem with that. In fact, I would encourage that. I would encourage a lot of the bodybuilding types to not be such a pussy. I get under and lift some heavy weight. But over to his other points. Is the deadlift a great exercise to hypertrophy muscles? No. He's right. He is right. Not the best hypertrophy exercise, not by a long shot. In fact, my guys who even say that if we want to do a deadlift from the floor for any significant volume, usually even for my clients, we just use a sumo deadlift because it's easier on your erectors and you recover faster. But we don't generally build my guys' backs and hamstrings and all that stuff up with the deadlift. I don't even build my own that way. I mean, we need to be realistic about the purpose of any tool. You know, deadlift is a phenomenal test of brute strength. I think it's the best there is. That's my opinion. It says me. I'm entitled to my opinion. You have a right to disagree. But even I saying that, do I think it's a great hypertrophy exercise? No. Maybe for a ranked novice, yeah. That's why we do some 5s on novices on it. It's there to test your max strength. There to test brute strength. And it's good at it. Use the appropriate tool for the job. I would much rather guys build up their back and everything with rows and good mornings and their hamstrings with various hip hinges and glute bridges and everything else, right? Rather than use the deadlift for it. All right, guys, so that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.